Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Backstage with Builders podcast. Today, with me, I have Irene Lee. She's the Chief Compliance Officer and Head of Strategy for Digital Assets and Fintech at a global family office in Vancouver. With over 18 years of experience in compliance across private banking, family offices, fintech, and regtech, she has worked with regulators across North America, Hong Kong, and China. Beyond finance, Irene also sits on multiple boards, including VCR Technology Association of Canada, and has taught compliance and fintech at universities. She's been a keynote speaker at over 200 major industry events and is deeply involved in cultural preservation projects, including the study of Oracle bone script. I'm excited to go behind the scenes with her today to talk about her journey from navigating complex regulations to driving innovation at the intersection of finance and technology. It's good to have you here, Irene. Okay, thank you so much for joining the podcast, Irene. I have given you a quick, brief introduction already, so I'll just jump into the first question that I have planned out for you. You have worn so many hats: compliance leader, board member, educator, and cultural preservationist. If someone asks you what do you do, Irene, how do you usually answer that?
Yeah, I think this is a really great question for me. I would tell everybody that I wear basically three interconnected hats. So first, I am a compliance architect, like drawing on my literature background, which taught me to decode very complex text in the scene, behind the scene. So to interpret tangled regulations, to uncover the why behind the pen of rule writers. So that is my mystery skills, I would say, because I can see through the pen holder. So I would know the purpose of writing the regulations. And second, I would say myself a cultural bridge. Like through my work with, you would know that I actually focus on study Oracle bone script language.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
which
was super interesting, by the way. I had to Google that real quick what that was. So that was super interesting.
yeah, so it was born 3,000 years ago, which is
Hmm.
one of the oldest language format in the world. So this helps me to tap into the Asian intelligence to crack the code of mystery that is written on the script. And it also helped me to understand the modern complexities as well, because you can use the oldest intelligence to actually translate what happened in the future, because it's the same. The human intelligence is the same. I would once after my study, basically I thought this is the algorithm of the Asian
Right.
people. Yeah, so it's the oldest AI format. And once I master the skills, basically I can see through the answer right away. So that is one of the skill set that I acquired by learning Oracle bone script language. And last but not least, I think art and tech is also something that I acquired by forming the new organization in Canada, which is the BC Art Technology Association Canada, which I help merge art and tech together. While my compliance work here, which I have a market or the intelligence in cracking the regulatory and economic codes. And you can think about a principle base and the prescriptive framework and bridging the East and West, while the art tech actually helps you to make things more fun, innovative. And by the art part, basically, I can also rethink of how human intelligence interpret the most complex rules and with an art philosophy format. So it's merged with fun, logic,
Yeah.
technology, and all together. So make
No, that
things
makes sense. Yeah.
understandable. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. So, you don't take just one angle towards it. You have three, four, five, even sometimes six different angles towards one problem, even, right? Or just how things have even evolved, right? And the we always just learn from our history, right? Then take us back a bit. What first drew you into this world of compliance and finance? Because it's not something that I feel a lot of people just look forward to, right? It's not something that they decide. Was it something similar for you, or was it something you basically planned, or did you just stumble into?
Yeah. It's like a fate, because when you look at my resume, I was from a very literature background. So I studied
Mm.
Chinese and literature, English literature in my university days. And so I have that skills which train me to look through the text, interpret wordings. So by nature, I'm not afraid of words law, tax, policies, and regulations. So I like
Yeah.
really look through the meanings and words. And then I moved into law a few years later. So I have a very pure literature background to work in the finance industry, but coming from a literature perspective. So you can see why I'm always a compliance throughout my
Right.
life. Yeah,
Yeah.
because of this kind of intelligence or kind of fascination. So that's actually by fate. And stumble
That
into
makes
it,
sense.
I would say now I'm quite forefront in the industry developments about fintech, about digital assets, compliance, because I use the skill set to actually go a bit further, million miles, to find out what is new and what is the complexities and help to shape the framework for new stuff. So that's how I end up in this industry.
No, that makes sense. So literature, basically, like studying literature gave you that foundation to build upon, like law, compliance, and everything else, right? That makes perfect sense. That's such a fascinating even thing too, right? Like you never know where the path might lead you to.
Yep.
And that's the fun thing about it too, eventually, right? But you have also like worked across different jurisdiction, right? You worked in China, Hong Kong, Canada. Like, has there, like, when you're working in different environments, right? Has it shaped your leadership or problem solving skills in a way because of that?
Yeah, I think each market taught me to balance code breaking with context. Like, for
Right.
example, Hong Kong and China, you can say they are a very fast moving environment and regulations. So everything is new. So your experience cannot actually help you to solve new things. So your
Mm.
problem solving skills basically align with all the new perspective, and especially in a cross-border China perspective. For example, people are coming from China to global, and some of them from global back to China. So it's super complicated. So these environment help me to shape things using new interpretation and innovative methods to look at new technology innovation.
That
And
makes
for
sense.
Canada, you can say that they are very traditional way of looking things. So they may have a very silo angle in looking at the economy. And sometimes I need to shift my approach. Like, for
Right.
example, I need to focus on outcome
Mm.
over some rigid rules.
Mhm.
And when you look at North American market rules, there are not a lot of room for changes. So there are
Right.
very classic rules and help me to actually build and also rethink. Do we need to be that fast, that
Mm.
evolving? Sometimes if it is a very workable model, sustainable model, it can last forever, last for decades. And for Canada, this is the soil for people that who can plant their sustainable business model or regulatory model that works forever, and very different way of looking into things. So I
That
would say,
makes
yeah, like blended these two environment, which taught me have a balance of code breaking with context. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. And that's something like I feel like we can read about it, for example, but we only learn it when we experience it, right? When we are like familiar, we are exposed to that, right? Ultimately. And I feel like in your case, then most people now know you for like your compliance expertise, your board rules, right? Leading there. But what's one thing that most people just don't know about you that shaped you?
Yeah, I think people knows me because of my compliance hat, but they do not
Mhm.
know where my cultural roots coming from.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically I'm a very traditional Chinese Hong Kongers. So
Yeah.
I have a lot of hobbies which ties back to the traditional Chinese culture and history,
That's so
including,
good. I like that.
yeah. So I'm actually a lion dancer. So I can play lion and dragon dance
Right.
during Chinese New Year. And I also,
Right, right. I've seen that. Yeah.
yeah, I'm actually perform the lion's head.
That's
So
so cool. That's so
yeah,
cool. Yeah, that's
yeah.
the coolest thing I've ever heard.
Yes. And I also I learn a lot of different rituals for the temples. So the
Right.
traditional Chinese temples, there's a lot of drumsticks, a lot of spiritual goddess, and some of the different interesting stories about traditional Chinese. And
Mhm.
I also studied there. I
Mhm.
studied those interesting stories as well. So this is the second thing people won't understand why I am so fascinated with the old history of China.
Right. No, that makes sense now, right? It makes perfect sense now. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course the important thing of my study on Oracle Bone Script language. So this is the mother of the modern Chinese language. So sometimes people who are from non-Chinese speaking country, for example, my foreign friends, they are really suffered for learning Chinese. So sometimes I would tell them, hey, why not just learn the mother of the language, which is the Oracle Bone Script? Then you will know the son better, that is the modern Chinese.
Right.
Them the fast track of learning the Oracle Bone Script, so that they say, oh, it's a lot easier for understand China language now. So that's another bit that I'm working very hard on.
That makes sense. It goes back again to the foundational level thing, right? It's like once you have the foundation strong, then you can just build on top of that, right? That
True.
that makes sense. That makes sense. But like now you have spent like around 18 years in navigating compliance and banking, fintech, family offices, right? Is there like an unexpected challenge you have faced in compliance? Then has it shaped you in your like leadership approach or skill set?
Yeah, so you can see that I have been with the industry for around 20 years. So
Around
think,
20 years.
yeah, so over 18 years, around 20 years from now.
Mhm.
So I first worked in the industry when the SFO, that is the Securities and Futures Ordinance in Hong Kong, first enacted. So
Right, that's true.
people, yeah, at that time actually did not know what compliance officer do or does. Basically, they just thought they are the gatekeeper, showstopper, whatever things you ask them, they say
Yeah,
no.
it's
Yeah,
always negative. Yeah, yeah. No, I can relate to that. Yeah.
yeah, so I always get pushbacks when I talk to the business people, and they always thought us, you don't know any business and try stopping our business. So you're reading out the rules only and without helping them to do judgment. So that's the very first pushback and challenges when I first entered into the industry. And then my literature background, interpretation of the rules, basically helped me to translate the nitty gritty or the complicated interpretation to the business. And I also learned that I need to be an enabler for the business people instead of like executor, interpreter, but actually help them to run the business easier and in compliance. So I
Right.
have been shifting my mindset on day one already. So that's helped me to overcome all the hiccups and hurdles, and also help me to shape that basically without business, without profits, there won't be any compliance.
Right.
And we can actually shift the gains between the red lines, green lines, and also the minimum standard or the best practice. So sometimes we have a lot of rooms for compliant, but not just one rules fit to all approach. So
No,
that's
that makes
make
sense.
me more flexible in the approach.
No, I can relate to that because like when I started my own like journey, right? Like as a lawyer, like I understood that very quickly where it's like I even did a poll, by the way, just like a quick story on that. Like I did a poll on the internet and I asked like what's the one thing that comes to your mind when you hear the word lawyer, right? And all the replies were negative. It's like high price, like you said, is like bottleneck, store like showstopper, blah blah blah. It's like okay, like my main goal then became like, okay, I have to change the word like the way people see a lawyer. So that makes sense. And but you said one thing like correct, right? Like I can just get that from like the way you explained it. It's like many founders even see now compliance as a burden, right? So from your experience, how can startups in the fintech space specifically can turn compliance into like a competitive advantage that just helps them grow instead of a roadblock?
Yeah, I can take one example because that's how I do it now. So I work for my family office as a compliance officer. So it's an in-house post and it is a cost center from family office perspective. So we are a cost. So once this is in their mind, cost, they try to eliminate or reduce it. And then,
Yeah, true.
yeah, and they were asked to how to make it solve the issues with lower resources or prices. And then I tried to turn it into a profit making center. So I proposed to my family office that actually compliance can be a competitive advantages of your family office when you work with the external parties. Perhaps our skill set can turn into a profit engine for the family office. So we try to, so the family office get some budget to incubate us into a profit center. So now we have a separate entity so that we can outsource our service and products to some of the similar family office or other clients that needs our service. For example, education, teaching, problem solving, some of the campaigns that runs the business more in a compliant way. And we also teach the startups founders, actually without compliance, you won't be sustainable in a business model, because sometimes missed some of the process procedures or miss some of the issues in setting up controls, you will be sanctioned or you will be punished when you start to scale up your business. So you have to start it in a compliant way, which is a minimum cost, but it really helps you save in a long way. So that's how I actually tell them. I'm also a startup founder for my family office because I run my own compliance entity now. So I know their problems and I know how difficult to keep business and also balance with the compliance issues. So that's how I give them a real life example, so they actually all convinced.
No, that makes sense. So then it becomes like, if you are proactive with it, right? It's the same thing with health, right? It's like, if you take care of your health, then you won't have to like suffer like medicinal bills and all that, right? It's the same with business. If you take care of the compliance, then the regulatory bodies and everything else won't be a problem. You won't be facing fines, nothing like that. Everything will be a smooth sail. And the people that ignore it will be forced to look at it eventually, or like shut down because of it, right? But now I'm seeing in the market, right? There has been, people have been trying to automate it, right? Compliance automation has becoming a thing, right? In your experience, then, in the next 5 years, especially with the help of AI tools, where do you think the compliance automation in general will end up going?
Yeah, if you asked me this question 3 years ago, I would say, hey, AI never can replace compliance. No way. You really need people to read through everything and to design compliance framework and tell you how to do things when complaints or investigation comes. But today, I would say that every AI or even basic AI can actually replace compliance job, because they are fast, efficient, they don't have mistakes, because they can read through all the regulation in just 1 second and then come up with all the answers. And they are becoming like a universal translator for global regulations. So even very complicated ambiguity in the global cross-border regulation, AI can actually help to give you a solution. And then you can actually train AI to automate all the process depending on your nexus. For example, if you are a global FI, if you're a global family office, you have presence everywhere. That means you step into different boundaries, cross-boundary, cross-border regulation. So here and there, it's very complicated. In the past, you need to hire local compliance people who have local intelligence, but now you just need one AI. You train up using your proprietary data, your proprietary business model, then they'll come up with solution and tell you what happened, what to do, what not to do when you have presence of business in different jurisdiction.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, and they can spot patterns as well. But however, I think human needs to be there with all the experience to reduce all the noises or some of the, I would say, conflicts between rules, because sometimes regulation and compliance not just on mechanical matching all things. It will need some human intelligence to understand what are the gray areas. For example, if these are the gray areas, can we have some kind of flexibility to overcome it, instead of really say no to not to do everything just to avoid the gray area? Because sometimes gray area, it means there are absence in regulations, but still room for your business growth. And actually we can talk to the regulators to say, hey, why not we just start with a sandbox approach, and then when the business scale it up, then we can add on some accommodative regulation to make it safe for the investor protection. So these are the things AI may not have that kind of intelligence, and then human can actually step in. Then in the future, I would say AI could help automate all the repetitive stuff, the mechanical ones, but human can focus on all the smart intelligence, advanced intelligence.
No, that makes sense. So human intervention is like ultimately still required, like, because you still need to verify all the information. And like you said, if there is a gray zone, it doesn't mean it's not allowed. It just means the regulators don't know what to do there. So it would become like contextual. And that's where you still need the person to actually just talk to those people, right? And make sure that to help them. Then in terms of just cross border, like specifically speaking about that, if there is like a hypothetical situation where a fintech founder in Vancouver and they want to now scale into like Hong Kong, is there like a compliance mistake that you know that they would most likely be making just
Yeah,
because of the cross border?
I think in my case, a lot of startup founders, for example, in Vancouver, always ask me whether I will be caught by the Hong Kong regulations if I am just doing offshore marketing in Vancouver, but for Hong Kong clients. Sometimes they do not know how to navigate the different regulations. And this is the most fundamental mistakes that people thought if I'm not locally setting up local presence in Hong Kong, I will not be caught. But basically, it's not, because it's about nexus. For example, if your clients is in Hong Kong and you are providing service to them, in some circumstances or some triggering point, they will be caught, and they will be also be caught by unlicensed dealing if it is about regulated activities. So this is not just a principle base of interpretation of laws, is a scenario based approach. So
Okay.
yeah, so I would need to know what are all the scenarios that they are doing business in different areas. For example, where is your entity registered, where's your license registered, and where are the clients coming from, and where are the source of income and fund. And you have to know all the connected dots to make sure that this is a clean area. This is Africa and you have no nexus, no client, no presence, or even no connections in Africa, then we can actually remove Africa as a base of regulations. So,
Right. No, that makes sense.
and we need to know the existing scenarios and also their future planning. For example, 3 years, will you plan to establish new business in those jurisdictions? Perhaps we need to plan backward, because you may need a license, you may need some financial statements history for preparation, for preparing a license in 3 years. So we will need some plan from the entity or from the fintech founders.
Right, that makes sense. So there's not a set of rules that they have to follow. It's more so like it depends on what they are doing right now and what they will be doing in the future, and then you can just prepare it accordingly. So it's like very contextual based, right? Like there's no ABC like you have to follow. It just depends on like what you are doing and what you are trying to do. That would just determine like everything, right? No, that makes perfect sense. Then changing a pace a little bit, like you have sat on several boards in fintech, art tech, cultural organizations. Like, how does sitting at the intersection of such different industry change the way you think about the strategy and governance?
So it's all about like cross decoding. For example, sitting on the fintech board focus on innovative compliance, and then when sitting on the art tech board, teaches me to ask how does these rules can enable creativity to
Right,
make it
that's
more
so good.
fun. Can a set of rule becomes a drama or visuals that make people have a long last memory on some boring stuff? It's helped me to rethink that. So fun compliance, yeah. And for example, when I'm advising on an art tech startup founder, they may also need compliance in certain way. For example, if they are they have a game, they have tokens, then it will fall into some kind of regulations. Tokenized game, and then there would be a digital asset. Then I will apply some fintech logic. So what are the core
Right.
risks there? Even you are artists, you have artists intent to go into that space, and then I have to educate them. Hey, you do know artists will need compliance as well. So everybody needs compliance and governance. And if
Mm,
they deploy AI in their design, then AI algo may need ethics. So do you have an
mm,
ethical framework to do a back testing, make sure there's no bias? So I would help them to rethink
right.
across industry, but make it more fun in a way. And I also use Oracle Bone script kind of logic to help them to see through what are behind the rules using the form,
Okay. Yeah.
because sometimes when the Chinese language come with actually human intelligence when design the wording, so they compact every complex meaning into one word. So you can see that if we can crack the code within it, there are intelligence coming out, then we can know how actually understand apart from the literature meaning and also the complex meaning behind the scene. So you will cover some of the different solutions and innovative way because of the Asian intelligence. So there are some examples that make compliance more fun than just looking at literature or some, like your lawyers, you'll know how boring it would be.
Yeah, pretty much. So it's like you explain the logic behind why something even is being done, or like right, like the logic behind the law, basically, right? In this case is like, and also like reading the words is one thing, but like understanding them is the other thing, which like you just help them understand it, right? Like if they want to move from point A to point B, then you like bridge the gap behind what does the law say, how do you make it like understandable in a way that they're like from a startup or perspective or founder perspective, they would understand, right? That makes perfect sense to me then. But you have also taught compliance and fintechs at university and professional bodies, right? If you had to like distill or like just create like one lecture that every fintech, or like into one lesson that every fintech founder should know, what would that be in your experience?
Yeah, so regulations are stories, I would say. Learn to read them. So my literature background taught me that every text has a narrator, a purpose, and a context. So that's the same goes for laws as well. So
Right.
for example, when a new AML law coming on the ground, it isn't just asking you to draft a list of do's and don'ts, but it is about the principle or stories behind, about protecting the customers. Why does this matters? Or what are the intent behind it? For example, it's for stabilizing the markets or stabilizing the economy or political things. So it help you to decode that story, and
Right.
compliance, stops being a burden from now on. For example, understand why different countries have their own priorities in compliance agenda. Like, for example, Canada always look about data or privacy, trust in venues, and let you know that what they're actually focused on. And then turning them into maybe focal points, selling points. So the founders who read the why behind the regulation don't just avoid the fines, but they will build business that resonates with the regulator and become a selling point. Because when the customers comes and understand that, oh, you are so smart in compliant in all the existing rules, including the upcoming laws, then people will have reliability to your business as well, and become stickiness with and a loyal customer to your firm.
No, that makes perfect sense. Like, I feel like that's the most important thing, like any founder can do. Instead of following something blindly, they understand why they have to do it. Like, even with business registration, I see this as a like the most common advice I see. Like, if you Google like how to start a business, like the first advice you might even get is register your business, right? But a lot of founders don't understand why that is even required, right? So in like 90% of cases, most company, like most founders don't need a like a entity registered until they have found like a product market fit, for example, right? But the only reason you would require the business entity is when you have to like protect your IP, when you have to like do something in relation to that. So it makes perfect sense. It also like ends up saving their costs too, right? In a way, once they understand why they have to do something, then they can like plan it accordingly. That makes perfect sense then. And also like you have spoken at like 200 over 200 events, right? Has there been like a Q&A that surprised you, or like it was like, okay, that was a good question for you?
Yeah, I recalled when I attended a Greater Bay Area Fintech Summit, a local regulator asked us. So it is a regulator in the Greater Bay Area in China. So they asked once that how can we make rules more decodable for startups? And it shifts the whole conversation from like just punishment enforcement or rule based kind of release, just flow you a paper to read into a communication. So at that time, I used an analogy, like I drew a Oracle bone script on the spot and say, hey, Asian scribes didn't just carve the symbols, and they left clues to their meaning. So it's not just showing you what it is, but also give you some tips and clues on what is behind, why it comes out with such a formation or rules and laws and the algo. Then I asked the regulator, why can't regulation do the same? Like they can brainstorm regulatory glossary and explain the story behind the rules. For example, the KYC requirement exists because of X, Y, Z past issues. The audience, like startups and regulators, are like lift up. And it reminds me even the most complex system, for example, Asian, right? In the past, the Asian people thought that, oh, it is too difficult maybe to create a weapon to attack a particular a soldier or wars, and then they can also use the same logic to help them to solve the issues. So there are also a lot of different complicated issues by cracking the language behind.
No, that makes sense. It becomes like interconnected, right? In a way, then like how you approach it, and that also like just helps with problem solving in general, right? Because the problem might not be the same, but the logic behind solving that problem or understanding an issue becomes the same, right? The steps generally just becomes the same, right? That makes sense. Then I have to like ask you like another thing, not in specifically in relation to this. Is there been like a hard decision when it comes to your career that you had to make, whether early on, like or later on, that still stuck with you or like has shaped you in a way as a person?
Yeah, that may not be the hardest, but I think from the other's point of view, this is the hardest because you can see that I'm leaving my role shaping the Hong Kong and Greater Bay Area to move to Canada, right? So it's a large shift, meaning that I'm stepping away from what I worked so long and what I have shaped the cross-border regulations to build GBA framework and now become a domestic domestic Canada compliance officer. But actually Canada offered me something new, which is like a eye-opening kind of experience, because the industry is a bit of different, because in Hong Kong, China, people, the investor, the client are more speculative. So they are looking at short investments, like 3 days, 3 months, 3 weeks would be their investment horizon. So they would like to have high risk, high return, and they're looking for speculations. They need profit making in a very short tenor. And then the FI will be like creating a lot of complicated, complex products to suit that particular taste. But in Canada, I think when you look at the product shelf in the FI, financial institution, there are nothing fascinating. So all are about long-term kind of these products, because the people just looking for stable income, regular. They don't go for risky stuff. And it is less competitive as well when you look at the environment. In China, there are loads of FIs and banks in Hong Kong as well. Small places, but we have a lot of. So it is very complicated, competitive. So you learn how to survive and to making sure that you get the market, you get to the gist of what the client demands. But in Canada, actually, it's a very big country. The population is relatively low. People are not as speculative, and they earn a living for normal daily cost of life. What you are focusing is not something that is on the bubble. It's more on the daily necessities. What they are thinking about transportation, about education, about quality of life, about health, about other stuff, about sustainability, green. So the focus a bit of shift, and also will learn how to linking or bridging the two very different worlds together, because sometimes they have a lot of, for example, people wants to go global, go overseas. They try to see whether they can set up a business or reallocate their assets or wealth management in Canada, and they ask us for advice. So what are the compliance stuff? What are the tax issues? So how about if we set up a business there, or we can earn money from Canada without having a presence there? So there's a lot of different questions as well. And vice versa, people come from Canada also ask, oh, what happened in China and Hong Kong now? Is this the best timing for me to reverse invest in China again? So then I'm in the middle of it, to giving valuable information, because now I am here and there. So this is a very good opportunity. Instead of just a silo compliance officer, I go millions beyond.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, you're like at the intersection of it all, and then you like beyond just the compliance role, you also understand the market, the people, the culture, and everything else, right? And that generally just shapes the business, and that also gives you like almost like a foresight into how things will even end up shaping, right? Because you have studied, you have seen, you have like been experienced in those different cultures, in those different areas, in those different jurisdictions, right? And that makes perfect sense. And then you are working in like a high pressure like industry, right? And then behind the resume, like behind the public speaking, what's one like behind the scenes you can say habit or practice that helps you stay grounded or calm even in such like high pressure industries?
Yeah, I practice calligraphy uh,
Right.
with Oracle Bone Script
Oh,
language.
okay.
Yes, so I sometimes teach my friends in Canada
Mm-hmm.
to learn Chinese with firstly to master the calligraphy first,
Mm-hmm.
because from the point of view, this is like a drawing. So once you focus on the drawing, focus on the strokes and lines, people tend to relax stress and also can relax from all the daily pressure, high pressure. So it's like a meditation by trying to draw the lines and create a new forms of your own Chinese words. So
No,
this
that
is
makes sense.
how I actually get a release from high pressure industry. Though
Right.
to me, pressure is not something that will push me to a very bad kind of habits or something. It actually gives me some kind of reflection. So when my body tries to react to pressure, actually it reflects as well. Hey, how come this is a pressure to yourself? If you actually put it down or just not to think about it or think it in another angle, you can have other feelings towards the same stress. So sometimes I would distract it a little bit to focus on the calligraphy and try to meditate during the process, and that would be having some different feelings and solutions out from that particular pressure, and it always works. So yeah.
No, that makes perfect sense to me. It like almost like shapes you like in a better to become like a better person, right? And also
Yeah.
with calligraphy, I feel like then it also teaches you not to how to not rush things and just take it in the moment, like take it step by step, right? That makes sense. That and it's so important to have those almost like rituals, I would say, where to have those like behind the scenes, something that you do outside of the work that keeps you in like that calm and collected space, right? Then one final question for you, Irene. What's next for you then? What are you like most excited about, like just moving forward?
I am having different projects right away. So what's
Hmm.
next is I'm trying to focus on these big projects and scale it up. So one is about Web3 and Oracle Bone Script language.
Okay, that's so interesting.
Yeah, so it is about education to teach non-Chinese speaking population to learn Chinese. Then because people knows the education and I wanted to become a new IP, intellectual property for myself. So and make it fun. So I try to put Web3 elements into it. So you can imagine that could be a marketplace for people learning Chinese, but with tokens to learn, and then it become a marketplace and people can
Right.
create the tokens within the environment but also learn Chinese in the environment, and then it becomes something that we can blend culture and finance together. So that is something that I'm cooking into it and see what I will launch in the coming few months.
That's so cool though. Then it will have also like a community aspect to it, right? Like everyone will be together, everyone will be like just interacting with it. Like I'm excited then for it for you, Irene. I feel like be really cool, especially with the Oracle like bone script. Because again, like I said, like when you mentioned that, like I had to Google it just to check out what it was, and like I was so fascinated by it, like because I was like, this is really cool, right? So yeah, that makes sense. Thank you so much, Irene. This was like I learned a lot just from you, like just listening to you like speak about everything. I feel like for a lot of people also like just listening to this, I feel like they also just learned a lot. And everything in relation to your website and the LinkedIn and everything, I will have that in the description. And again, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me and all the thoughtful questions. Thanks so much. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you, Akhil.